Here are a number of members of USA Hockey lore that have made their debut in the National Hockey League. You can see the date that they made their debut, realizing a lifelong dream. Being able to represent the country in the World Juniors is special. The Olympics, next level.
Hold on.
What?
You changed.
Well, I like everybody to know just how seriously I take being a journalist. I like to look at myself as like a Peter Jennings, where I play it right down the middle, where you can't tell he cares more about Team USA or Team Canada or Team Belarus. Yeah. So that's why I wear this jacket, so they know, wow, this guy's really a journalist. Yeah. He's serious.
True.
So it's time for us to kind of put together our brainstorming session.
Okay.
Team USA. Last time we won gold, and by we I mean they. 1980 and 1960.
Yeah.
2010, silver medal. 2014, no medal. We won't dwell on that. Let's discuss the veterans first. DJ, there are a number of guys that have USA Hockey experience that could conceivably still be on the roster come 2022. Notable veterans. Who jumps out at you on that board? Please say Patrick Kane.
Patrick Kane.
Good.
Yeah. Patrick Kane jumps out at me because even though he's at 32 and 33 perhaps next year when we get to the Olympics, he is still playing at a very, very high level. There's no question about that. So I think there's no question he'll be a part of it. It doesn't hurt that his general manager, Stan Bowman, is the guy picking the team. So it would be a little uncomfortable, let's say, if there was another decision. But he is still playing some great hockey. So I think for sure he is one guy that I think will be on that team. And, another guy that jumps out at me a little bit is TJ Oshie because, every year when you have an Olympics or every 4 years, there's always guys younger guys come into the mix, older guys kind of fall out of the mix.
Right.
But TJ Oshie is such a glue guy in any room that he's ever been in. Plus, he's a terrific player that can play in all situations in the game. We know that in the Olympics, the shootout does come into play. I believe he had something to do with it in Sochi, if I recall. And so there's a number of reasons why I think that you'd want to still have TJ Oshie within your group. He's still playing very well. As I mentioned, he can play in those different situations, and he brings that intangible of being really good in that shootout, which you may need in particular games in an Olympic competition. So those are a couple of the guys that stand out to me. But, for Stan Bowman, they're looking to put together the team that is going to be the best in February of 2022. And by that, I mean, you got to find the older players that are still playing well, that can still get it done. You want to have those younger players that have reached the level, they're ready for this competition. And you're always putting together an orchestra when you're putting together a team. Lou Lamoriello has famously talked about you need the drummers to drum, the fiddle players to fiddle, and so on. So you're trying to piece together a lot of different things. It'll be interesting for Stan Bowman and his group with Team USA because they have a lot to choose from now, certainly more than they may have had in years gone by.
Along those lines, down the middle, every year when you watched Mike Babcock's Olympic teams, you had the sense they could win a face-off at any dot on the ice. Team USA now has the centerman to match up somewhat well. You don't want to say that they'd be better because that would be presumptuous. But Team USA's centerman, thinking about guys like Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel, EJ, there really is talent at that position for the United States and perhaps less disparity than at any other time during the NHL Olympic era.
Yeah, I would say that, a healthy Jack Eichel and Austin Matthews, 1-2 down the middle. I think they can play with anybody, any country that just participated. That includes Canada. Now, let's face it, Canada will have McDavid, Crosby, and maybe Bergeron. I mean, you can go through the list. There's a lot of great Canadian centers, and there's a lot of great centers from many of the different countries, the Swedes, the Finns, the Russians, the Czechs, on and on we go. But certainly having Matthews and Eichel, two big, strong, young players that, the size is the big thing for me, Tony, with both of those guys. They are big, strong guys. They can both shoot it. They can both make plays. They can play in a lot of different situations in the game. The key thing will be, how healthy will they be at that time? Because we've seen Matthews have a few tweaks with the wrist that's kept him out of some games this year. And, of course, Eichel is not even in the lineup right now and is going to have surgery to repair what we think is a disc issue in his neck. So that is something that you have to consider there for Jack Eichel. But hopefully if those guys are healthy, You can have them 1-2. And then one of the guys on that list, too, I think is an interesting guy to be a third or fourth center is Vincent Trocheck. I think he could bring a lot to the table for Team USA down the line in their lineup.
He won World Junior Gold for Team USA, and we as a nation appreciate him. To the wing position now. EJ, there's plenty of talent here. Lots of names to look at. My favorite thing when we were talking about this was how quickly you mentioned the names Tkachuk and Tkachuk.
Yeah.
Those two you'd have confidence in, despite their youth, that they could handle that big stage.
Well, you know, Matthew is in that window where, you know, you would think he's somebody that's going to get a lot of attention. But and I've seen people have done their mock teams and different names have come up. And, you know, there have been some people that weren't so sure about Brady Tkachuk. And, like, for me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, he's big, he's strong, he's not afraid of anything. He's not afraid of the highest levels of competition. The pedigree is certainly there. For me, I would have both Matthew and Brady on the roster for Team USA in 2022, barring any kind of strange underperformance or injury moving forward. But, those guys compete, they battle, and, again, Brady Tkachuk, I don't know how you could keep him off just because he's just too big, too strong, too good, and he'd be somebody that could play a lot of different roles probably for your team moving forward in an Olympic elite tournament. He
would play against Slovenia with this level of intensity. He would play against Canada with this level of intensity. He would play in practice with this. You just know what you're getting with the Tkachuks. Yeah. On the back end, we think about the 1980 Olympic team and Mike Ramsey and all those talented back-enders, Ken Morrow. How about Team USA's blue liners? Your impression of this group, EJ?
Well, I like the right side right away when you think about having Seth Jones as a right side guy, when you think about having Charlie McAvoy as a right side guy. You think about John Carlson, still someone that's a really terrific defenseman in this league, as another right shot guy. Adam Fox, who's making his push. Young John Marino, Brett Pesce. I mean, a lot of good right shot guys. And then on the left side, it's no real heartbreak either over there when you think of a puck mover like Quinn Hughes or Cam Fowler or, Jacob Slavin, Zach Werenski. So I think that's going to be interesting, and there's probably names up there that as we move forward towards decision time that will kind of emerge as well as possible players to be in that mix. I mean, for example, would they want to bring Slavin and Pesce together from Carolina where they have that experience, they play together?
Great idea.
Would that work? Maybe that's the thing that makes sense for them, but, maybe they have other ideas, and this is hard. This is the elite of the elite. This is the very best players that your nation has to offer, and so it'll be a challenge for Stan Bowman and company, but there's a lot of good names on all these lists that we've looked at, and they're going to have a lot to choose from and a lot of tough decisions to make.
And we're looking for the right players, not the best ones, as Kurt Russell says in Miracle. Not that I've seen the movie a time or two. In net, so critical. Jim Craig had those magical couple weeks in Lake Placid, and that's why that team won gold. You've got to pick a goalie, and Ryan Miller was this in 2010, who was so spectacular. Of this group, can you see someone going on a Miller-Craig-esque couple-of-week run?
Well, I mean, you have to consider Hellebuck, right? He just won the Vezina Trophy, and he's been a terrific goalie in this league. I think John Gibson is somebody that we lose sight of a little bit because he's with the Anaheim Ducks right now, and that's been a struggle for them. And it's hard. When you're a goaltender and you're getting no run support from a team, and it's been a tough year, it's hard to stay at that high level. But John Gibson, to me, I got to see him at the 2013 World Junior Championships. I was doing those games with Steve Mears, and he did not allow a bad goal in that tournament. And they lost a couple games in that tournament before going on to win the gold medal, but he did not allow a bad goal. So he is someone you would consider. Alex Nedeljkovic is starting to make a name for himself with the Carolina Hurricanes. We saw Thatcher Demko, how he played in the bubble last year, and even this year when he got himself going, he was terrific. So, again, there'll be a lot of good options, and it'll be up to Stan Bowman and company to kind of keep an eye on these players. The curious thing is, will they have a camp, right? Because in other years, you have a training camp, you bring guys together. I know they did that in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago at the Caps training facility. They brought everybody in. They bring a bigger pool of players in. And then they start to see, kind of where guys fit and try to get a measure of where these guys are in their career. Going all the way back to Team Canada in 2002, Jerome McGinley was not on the radar for Team Canada. It was through injuries and illness, I believe, that he got an opportunity to come to the training camp. And then he really impressed everyone, and the rest was history. He became a big part of that gold medal winning team. So it'll be interesting to see if they are able to have a camp and what comes out of that moving forward, because there's names that we have not talked about, we haven't even mentioned on these lists, that I'm sure could be a part of things moving forward.
And then there's this sense of chemistry. You think about the Cone headline from 1980, the Iron Rangers, the fact that they could pass, skate, score, play together. That's the kind of thing that would expose itself during training camp competition. Last thing for you, and this is because I was in this room watching him do what he did on such a special night. The World Junior Gold Medal game, there was a particular young man in net, Spencer Knight. He has obviously already made his way to the National Hockey League. This young man, we always see a team carry 3 goalies. Wouldn't it make sense for him to be that third goalie, to have the experience going forward?
It's possible. I mean, again, I think that, if you just, as we sit here now, you would think that a guy like Hellebuck and a guy like Gibson would be the 2 guys you'd think of first, just because their experience level and kind of where they're at in their careers. Knocking into the other guys. I get the sense that's where you start. You think about Demko, you think about Nedeljkovic, but I think you make a good point, Tony, is that Spencer Knight is kind of a favorite son of Team USA, and he certainly got the job done a couple of months ago at the World Juniors. He's come in and he's even played an NHL game now, and he had success in that win in his career debut against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, when I think about it, I think that's something they will discuss internally. Because, again, it's not just Stan Bowman sitting in a room by himself. He'll have Billy Guerin and a bunch of other managers that are part of the team, and then he'll also have input from the Team USA people that run the junior programs and those teams that they've had in international competition at the lower levels. The U18s are playing right now, albeit it was a tough start last night, losing in overtime to the Russians. But a lot of people will have some input at the end. Stan Bowman will make a final decision. So, I would say Spencer Knight, his name will come up, and I would say it's possible for him to be the third guy. But it really just depends on how they feel about the 2 guys that are up front, if they're playing well, and if they need a third guy that they might want to turn to if they have to.
What I would say is, respectfully to Mr. Bowman, you were named after the Stanley Cup. That's why your name is Stan. Your father is Scotty Bowman. You know more about hockey than I'll ever dream. If you want to make history, have Spencer Knight on the team. In the history of the Florida Panthers, debut goalies that have won their debut, I'm going to list them. Spencer Knight. And that's it. No one had ever done it before.
Yeah.
If we're going to make history, let's bring Spencer Knight.